Okay, for part two of our breakout program, once again we have our four classes, but we're in the main one, our breakout. And let's get a little work started in this. So at least the first thing we're going to do is create that welcome message. We can set that equal to a G label. Whoops. And we'll add a click to start message. And then we'll put it on the screen. And give it some location, so 100, 100. Now what we want to do is when the game starts, once again it says click to start, so we'll add a wait for click before the game runs. And once that happens, we're going to remove our welcome message. The other objects we have that we need to instantiate or create objects from just like that are the paddle. So we have paddle equals new paddle ball equals new ball. And blocks equals new blocks. And I'll compile to make sure everything's working. And one other thing, we do have, we are going to be doing key listeners. So down here, we also want to add key listeners. So that we can get input from the keyboard. And then once the game starts, we want to add our items. So we're going to add the blocks. We're going to add the ball. And we're going to add the paddle. And then there's always a game loop. So we'll have while true in here. That's a Boolean, the default. And that's just going to be the action that takes place while the game's running. So we have that going. We have to add some functionality to these. We have no methods over here. So let's think about a few things that we need to do and then add them. So if we get into the ball is going to need to do a few things. It's going to need to bounce. And we're going to have to check for collision with the bricks. So that'll be one method. I should say bounce off paddle and walls. And these are going to be different because yes, it'll bounce off the brick, but we'll then have to remove the bricks as we go through. Let's see, some things the blocks might do. Well, the blocks are going to have to add themselves, sort of instantiate themselves or add blocks to the screen. We'll have several rows. And then the paddle is going to have to move left and move right. Now one thing to notice, these methods aren't going to be static because we're creating an object from paddle. If we jump over here, lowercase paddle is the object name, so they'll be doing something like paddle dot move left at some point. So that is going to be a regular method, not static. So if we go back to paddle, we can do public void move left. Now the void, if you remember, just means it's not returning anything. If this was going to do a calculation and then return an integer, it would be something like public int. And then the last statement would be return x, or return whatever variable that's an integer that you want to send back. This one's going to be void. So we're going to have our move left method. And we're going to have our move right method. And then if we go back, so now let's go back to the breakout and sort of think of what methods, when we might be calling these methods. So while the game's running, we might have paddle dot move left, paddle dot move right. And these aren't necessarily in the right locations. I'm just throwing out what methods we need to have at some point. We need ball dot, and we haven't named these yet. Check for collision with bricks. Ball dot, check for bounce off paddle or wall. We're going to have to at some point add the bricks, although that might be through there. So that's what we're going to do. We'll have the paddles moving left to right and the ball colliding, and then if things happen like that, we might have to add some more depending on how this game works.